each of the presenter will present. Please don't entertain. I think we did well yesterday by that arrangement, so we just want to keep it like that. Let's enjoy. We've got 2 minutes. Hopefully the leaders arrive on time. Chairman is already here. Thank you, Governor. And so let's enjoy the rest until the leaders arrive. Thank you very much. So if the support staff can please make sure three more chairs are added here. I've asked a person to do that. Please enjoy. Good morning. Good morning. Vice President.
I think most of the leaders are here, so we should start. MCs, are you guys ready?
Yes, we are.
So, I call the second day of the Micronesian Island Forum 28 into session. And good morning, everyone. Leaders, aides, everyone in this. But I would like to particularly recognize one of our leaders both in tradition and government. With us this morning is our at-large Senator, Honorable Peter Christian. And also, he holds the title of Quasi Next in line to become non-marquee of Next. So let's please welcome him with a round of applause. I wish to extend the same courtesy and respect to the Honorable Vice President Pahrek, Honorable Governors, Honorable Representatives of Marshall Islands, sitting in for President Heine is Isabella Silk, Secretary of Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and sitting in for President Whips is Calvin Higasil, Director of the Bureau of Public Works, and sitting in for President Adean of Nauru. And Astra Benjamin, Director, International Securities and Environment. And of course, you all know the rest of us. So at this time, we are in session. I'll turn the floor over to the Master of Ceremonies. Oh, before I do that, I would like to, there is a slight change in the program. I will be allowing Dr. Underwood to do a short presentation, but I respectfully humbly ask that there will be no discussion or questions. And if there are issues that needs to be addressed, we will address it in the leaders' dialogue in the closed meeting, either today or in tomorrow's session. So I respectfully ask. Thank you. MC.
Thank you, Chair. Your Excellencies, honorable leaders, heads of delegation, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. All protocols observed. Good morning and welcome to Day 2 of the 28th Micronesian Islands Forum. To formally open our proceedings today, I invite my co-MC, Mr. Pahrek, to offer our morning prayer. May I kindly ask everyone to please stand.
Excellencies, honorable dignitaries in the room, let's have a moment of seeking the Lord's guidance. Dear Heavenly Father, on this second day of Leaders Forum meeting, we ask you to bring your spirit to dwell among leaders and all of us who are supporting you. We thank you for yesterday. Despite the rain, you kept it. We appreciate everything you've done since the beginning of preparing for this night. We see your will and your power come through and bring them all together in this room. In your Son, Jesus Christ, we ask you to give them guidance and all of us that are supporting. May this second day of retreat continue to praise your name. In your Son, Jesus Christ, amen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To summarize our accomplishments from Day 1, our leaders successfully completed the official handover of the Forum Chairmanship, delivered key statements reaffirming our regional commitments, and received comprehensive reports from our Secretariat, core committees across education, health, tourism, and trade, as well as the Marshall Islands Sovereign Digital Financial Initiative. Before we begin presentations this morning, please ensure all mobile and electronic devices are set to silent. To our presenters, please remain mindful of your allocated 15-minute windows and take note of the visual cues. For our leaders, the complete reports of the presentations may be found in your folders. We will now proceed with our morning presentations. To begin, I call upon Director Leland Bettis of the Pacific Center for Island Security to deliver a presentation on Micronesia at the center of a complex security environment. Thank you.
I'm not Leland Bettis, but we're in the same organization. Afade, Casabella, Camarele, Yokwe, and Ali. And Your Excellencies, only some people are entitled to be called Your Excellency, but you're all excellent. Take pride in being excellent. And so, courtesy of Governor Joseph, I'm grateful for the opportunity to provide a very brief introduction to the work of the Pacific Center for Island Security. I am the chair, and with me today is Leland Bettis, who's also a director at PCIS. We are funded by Carnegie and some assistance from the Sasakawa Peace Foundation. We are energized by a desire to provide locally relevant information on security issues in which Micronesia plays a significant role in international relations and as part of a potential area of what is called kinetic action, which basically means war, as part of the second island chain, the growing activities of China, and the military response of the United States and other nations. Climate change and sea level rise are now with us. So too is increasing geopolitical competition. These seem inescapable realities that are very complicated and complex and relate to each other in unique ways and are, in the eyes of most islanders, existential in nature. They threaten the very existence of the islands. At PCIS, we seek to increase awareness about these geopolitical realities. As we know, many powers would just like to issue press release or tell us their activities, and we just sort of accept that and not apply any kind of critical eye to them. So we hope that by increasing awareness, we hope to enhance island agency, meaning each one of the jurisdictions have the capacity to deal with these changes, increase the indispensability of the islands and this organization, and promote collaborative futures rather than ones with conflict. So this is our website. You can all go to the website, PacificCenterForIslandSecurity.com, and there's a number of items that we're very proud of. Our focus is Micronesia, and as many of you know, in the middle of Micronesia is what is sometimes referred to as the Pwuhng cluster, and that's why we're very interested in it. At PCIS, we provide you with 3 different products. The first is a daily update of all relevant news to the international, diplomatic, military activities in the region. It's called Pacific Winds. You can go there every day. Leland gets up very early in the morning. He scours the whole internet and he provides the information and people read it. We know that other think tanks in the United States, Australia, consult this on a regular basis. We keep, we have a way of counting that. So we know that they're always consulting it because this provides one comprehensive look at all of the media accounts from a variety of sources, a variety of international sources. We also provide you with a map of current activities and initiatives in this region. This is entitled the Micronesia Security Monitor. On this map, we track all maritime activities and military exercises so that you will be informed directly and regularly without filters about what is occurring in your homeland, and you can go to each particular island and see what's going on in that island, as well as the regional look, and without any kind of filter. All of the sources we use and post are open source. I love to say that because I don't want anyone to think that we are involved in divulging or using classified information, because we don't have access to that anyways, but I just want people to know that. But this map is also regularly consulted by security experts, journalists, and government officials worldwide. So before I call Leland up, I just want to say, lastly, we provide an annual compilation of independent reports by regional voices and international experts on the region in an annual report. So you'll see reference to specific entities in that report. And that is prepared by people from the region, from those areas, and also we attract some international experts to speak specifically about that. And we also provide reports to local media entitled SIT, or Strategic Island Thinking. So I call up Leland and he can explain a little bit about the latest on the mapping.
Thank you, Dr. Underwood. The Micronesian Security Monitor was created to really bring attention to the changing geopolitical tides that we're through. Since the end of World War II, the United States has managed an area along what's called the First Island Chain, along this area here, which has been sort of the containment strategy with respect to China. Clearly, geopolitical events are changing. China is becoming a global power. They are looking to expand beyond that containment zone. And U.S. alliances along this First Island Chain are also somewhat fragile, as we can see just from the news yesterday regarding Korea. So what that does is it brings more focus to our region along the Second Island Chain. So that's really the focus of what we're doing, is to bring more information about this area, which appears to be essentially a fallback position for the United States. We know there's ongoing developments through the region, from Tinian through Guam and down to Yap and Palau. So we focus on several items, and I'm just going to highlight them because you will all have the opportunity to look at these yourself. We look at military bases and places, so if you were to look at any ongoing military developments at any of the sites along here, you will just click on the site and you'll be able to get updates on what's occurring in those areas, what the military plans are, so we'll have all the open source plans. We'll give you an idea of all of the ongoing projects. There's news and other information that's related. There's resources, so it's a deep resource for each of these various island bases and places. Obviously, some have more than others. We also look at military exercises that are occurring in the region. So if we look at, Valiant Shield 26, it's a massive joint force exercise, multilateral exercise, so we track how all these activities occurred, where they occurred, and then all the participating organizations from each of the countries down to the unit level, and the equipment that are involved in the activity, as well as other information about the ongoing exercises. I won't go into detail because it's quite voluminous. The other piece that we have on a regular basis, and we update this monthly, is maritime activities. We do not track things like fishing vessels, but we do look at other items like military ships and vessels when we see them, and we can see them. We pay attention to research vessels, and I'll just focus on those right now. But if we look, and I'll just look, for example, at all research vessels for the last 6 months, and other vessels we look at, just military tugs, government vessels, offshore support vessels, which are related, for example, to deep sea mining. But if you look at research vessels for the last 6 months, it will give you an idea of ongoing activity in the region. And again, this is done without reference to nation. It's just any and all activity that are occurring. Give us a moment to update this. For some reason, we want to get in there. Well, I'm not getting our flag for some reason. Perhaps our internet's slow. Let's try China first. Well, I don't think our internet is allowing us to. Let me reload the map and see if we can get that. I'm terribly sorry. Yes, I did this just this morning and there was no issue, so I'm not sure what's going on. We have a very stable provider of information. I'm very sorry this is not seeming to go through this way. It could be that just the amount of data that's involved. What we track is, and you guys could do this yourself if you just go to all flags, for example, when we get out of the range here, all flags, and look at research vessels. There we go. Okay. This is a look at research vessels in the region for the last 6 months. And we'll try to be quick here given the time lapse. In blue are U.S. vessels. In red are Chinese vessels. Up here the Japanese are in white. So, the Japanese are doing a lot of mining research around some of the islands that are strategic for them, and they're looking at critical minerals. I'm just going to click on this. This is a U.S. Take that back. This is a U.S. research vessel. It's an autonomous vehicle. You can see the research that they've been doing on oceanographic research, probably around mineral mining in this region over the last 6 months. Of course, the Northern Marianas is particularly significant given the news yesterday that the U.S. is proceeding with mineral leases in Northern Marianas, but you can see the same vessel has been doing a lot of work just north of the Micronesian EEZ in what looks like to be an open ocean pocket. This little jot down here, by the way, is when the vessel before the typhoon Sinai. If you want to sort of dig down the vessel, you can see we track the activity month to month, where it's been and what it's up to. That's the U.S. side. Let's look at the China side real quick. Or a Chinese vessel. This is an interesting pattern. The Chinese are doing a lot of oceanographic research, which obviously doubles as potential for submarine, anti-submarine warfare. Right off of Guam. This happens to also be right along the cable route between Guam and the Philippines. And the interesting part of this piece is, of course, as the Governor Pwuhng knows, just after they were doing some of the work there, they did a little joyride down to Pwuhng's EEZ without authorization. So again, we track all of this information down to the vessel level, and this particular activity is updated monthly on this particular site. I'm going to leave it at that for now, but I just want to show you a little bit of the capabilities, with the exception of one more thing. We do provide news, happens on a regular basis. So one of the things that we do is we're going to have a regular update on activities in the region. So if you look, these are the latest updates for information. Sorry about that. Latest update for all the information in the region hasn't been updated yet for today, but for yesterday. These are all the news stories that you see occurring around the region. And again, we do a wide source of references, a wide reference source, everything from U.S. sources, Chinese sources, and everyone in between. Again, our idea is to promote as much of the discourse that's out there so that users can look at it and decide what makes the most sense to them. For that, thank you, Dr.
So, in conclusion, I just want to say that we are available for consultation on this, and this information is independent. It's for your use. It's for in a way that hopefully provides you useful information. And we are available for consultation. You can go on the website. We can arrange for a little bit of training about where the information comes from and how to use it. And we can do that with you or your staff. And we can do that through Zoom or any suitable platform. So appreciate it very much. Thank you for your rapt attention. As I said, you've been an excellent audience and a very attentive audience. And at the conclusion of every class that I've ever taught, I always ask, are there any questions? But I can't do that today, so I'll ask, are there any answers? That's it. Thank you very much.
Dr. Anwar and your colleague, and thank you for understanding. I believe this is good information for all the jurisdictions, however you want to use it. We have the information. We can approach Dr. Anwar for it. All right, let's move on.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Dr. Underwood and Director Bettis. I now call upon the Micronesia Challenge Committee to deliver their presentation. May I take this time to ask all morning presenters to please take your seats in the reserved front row. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Morning, all. Your Excellencies, Honorable Governors, distinguished representatives and delegates to the 28th Micronesian Island Forum, guests and ladies and gentlemen, it is my extreme honor to be representing the Micronesian Challenge Committee in providing this report, brief report this morning. My name is Glenn Joseph from the Marshall Islands, a newly elected chairman of the MCRO. And I want to also acknowledge Vanji Luan from Pwuhng, former chair of the MCR for the last 2 years, who have done extremely well for the Micronesian region and the Micronesian Challenge in propelling key decisions that were made last year, and for me to take that on and continue the good work on all your behalf. And so with that, and noting the time frame that we have, we can talk Micronesia Challenge all day, all week, all year, but for 15 minutes we'll be brief and provide you with an update. There is a written report that we've submitted, and so honorable members, please take the time to go through that. So this presentation will be a brief snapshot of that report, as well as providing an update from the last communique that we had last year, key decisions, as I said, and the finance, sustainable finance, and all these good work will require technical and financial assistance, and so we're trying to package that up and present it to you in the next 15 minutes. So perhaps as a recourse and a snapshot of where we are, we started this in 2006, sorry. 20 years now, this Micronesia Challenge has been ongoing. And really, it is a feat. If you go through all the jurisdictions, from the Marshalls all the way to Palau, there's quite a bit of work that has been done over the years. And really, from the 30% marine and 20% terrestrial, we started with and expanded it to 50% marine, 30% terrestrial in 2019. In 20 years, one of the achievements is we have endured with 23 leadership over the years in that respect. And still, Micronesia Challenge remains a global model for conservation leadership. In other words, we're teaching the world how to conserve. And certainly, that model has been emulated through some of the movements in the global community, such as the Caribbean Challenge and others. So the world is learning from Micronesia at this point. And on the institutional progress, next slide, please. With 5 founding jurisdictions, in essence, as reflected in paragraph 46 of the communique last year, to relocate the Micronesia Challenge Regional Office from Palau to the Marshall Islands. And as alluded to by President Heine in her opening remarks yesterday, the Marshall Islands aim to hit the ground running with this establishment, with this new office. In fact, to the point where the office space has already been identified. and the recruitment process for the executive director has been complete. And as of last night, the finalist has accepted the offer. And his name is Roderick Pohnpei from the Marshall Islands. I assure you, you will know this name as we progress throughout the years. Next year, hopefully, this office will coordinate the report out to you leaders from the Micronesia Challenge Regional Office in Montreal. Next slide, please. All this good work, as I said, require financing. Who's going to fund it? Unfortunately, that's one of our challenges. Fortunately, we have good partners out there that are willing to step up. And of course, coordinated by our own NGOs, IGOs, Micronesia Conservation Trust, and international NGOs such as the Nature Conservancy. And I understand we have MCT and TNC who will briefly touch on the financing, but there's an opportunity also tomorrow, I believe, for a luncheon that will accord a deep dive into all financial things for the good work again moving forward. Next slide, please. And I'll provide a very brief overview of the jurisdiction's report. Again, a very brief snapshot. The work entails is extremely important and extremely worthy of read in the report that has been provided. But briefly, CNMI. CNMI strengthened coral reef protection through the NOAA Coral Reef Conservation Program and an executive order recognizing reefs as critical infrastructure and includes coastal hazard response amid recent regional seismic activity. The one to watch, as far as CNMI is concerned, don't take my word for it, but if you can dwell with it, CNMI, they report the one to watch, a proposed federal lease of nearly 70 million acres for deep sea mineral exploration, which raises real concerns given how little we understand about these ecosystems and the absence of guaranteed revenue sharing. So in a way, a little bit of connection to the presentation that was just had. What's happening out there, not just in the high seas, but also in our respective jurisdictions. FSM continued to formalize its protected area network, coordinate with the states on endowment fund access, and update both its National Biodiversity Plan and its climate commitments. The National Adaptation Plan for FSM and Land Management Planning are underway with GCF and GEF, and the Marine Spatial Planning Bill has cleared hearings in YAP, CHIP, and COSRAI, with Pohnpei's bill to come before it returns to Congress. So, extremely important work there for FSM jurisdiction, and we congratulate the states involved. And for Guam, Pwuhng expanded its data and monitoring capacity, including a new spotter buoys for coastal conditions. Its conservation corps trained a 5th cohort alongside a new youth corps. The forest system planning, covering 13,000 acres, was adopted. Congratulations. And the fishery management plan is closely being looked at. Hopefully soon it'll be up for adoption. While community outreach and continue to see grant events, and the Shalan, and I apologize for Shalan, this will be a hub engaging the public directly on conservation and climate. Guam. Lastly, for Guam is concerned about seabed mining and requests support from the leaders to pause until better data and research are available. For the Marshall Islands, the RMI updated its Fremantle framework with 22 resource management plans now developed nationally. If you don't know the Marshalls, it comprises of 30 atolls and 2 islands throughout the archipelago. 22 resource management plan means they're nearly there with the entire archipelago. And so all the best with the RMI. As well as very much looking forward to hosting the MCR office to hit the ground running, as I said. And we look forward to next year's iteration of the report from this committee. Palau is finalizing its sustainable ocean policy. Thank you, Palau. Congratulations. And that entails folding conservation priorities into national tourism and infrastructure planning. Very innovative. The Bezos Earth Fund's First Movement Grant is strengthening the protected area network in Palau and the Palau National Marine Sanctuary, including expanded electronic fishing monitoring and fisheries monitoring on fishing vessels. And Palau has developed its own Micronesian challenge strategic plan to guide long-term implementation. And a very snapshot of jurisdiction's work. I can assure you there's a lot of more work that has been done throughout the years with each jurisdiction. And all that would mean the Micronesian challenge continues. And so the committee sees 3 challenges ahead, Your Excellencies. Capacity and staffing gaps continue to affect implementation and reporting across jurisdictions. I think it simply means to coordinate ourselves more better. And again, the establishment of the office and the staffing will ensure we do so. Climate change and development pressures are only intensifying that need. We all hear about a looming El Nino and a strong. Is it happening? It is. How we prepare for it surely will entail more work with our technical points of contact throughout each jurisdiction. The point is, let's get ready. And so, again, sustainable financing, I'll have Trina from TNC to give you a very snapshot of what entails. From also last year's MOU that you all have signed with the PFP.
Thank you, Glenn Casanella. The committee, in order to address one of the big challenges that Glenn mentioned, the reliance on unreliable short-term grant-based funding, the committee is recommending that member governments work to strengthen their own financing, domestic financing. That can include budget allocations, but also helping build out their MC endowments. And we want to help explore new sustainable financing mechanisms in each of the jurisdictions. And then this, in turn, can unlock new donor funding brought in through the PFP process. Second, we'd like to recommend that you continue advancing the MOU that was signed last year and through regional collaboration, really focus on that, working with our new executive director of the Micronesian Challenge Regional Office. And third, we really need your help. We have a very ambitious timeline to try and close. The PFP approach employs a single close, which de-risks, and all the donors come, and the countries and territories and everybody, all the partners come ready to go, ready to sign, and we're targeting November 2027. And we're already working closely with the Micronesian Challenge focal points from each of the jurisdictions and the ministers from the Resource and Development. And now we ask you to help us also continue to identify legal representation and finance representation to also co-develop and finalize all the agreements that need to be in place. So we ask for your help, and as Glenn mentioned, we'll go into it a little bit deeper at the leaders retreat.
Thank you, Trina, and I'll echo that recommendation as well. With some recommendations also in closing. And so, unlocking the blue Pacific prosperity. I mean, that's also one of the goals that we've set ourselves from you leaders. Now, the recommendation that we pivot targets to 100% effective management. 100% effective management means we also look at what are happening in other states, and I agree with the recommendations that perhaps ocean space and MCRO should be looking at aligning the TORs for purposes of, the cross-cutting issues, including also perhaps streamlining the reporting on the same issue, oceans and fisheries and the community that thrives on it, especially the Micronesian community. And so one of the examples, and in the interest of time, when I hear of pivot, it's probably time, WCPFC, and they're going to be doing a presentation later on, but all 4 key stops of the highly migratory tuna stocks are in the green, meaning all the good work that our officials, our technicians, our observers, and our fishermen in looking after that very lucrative global demand tuna is sustainable as compared to the other oceans. I mean, it's the world's biggest fishery and the world's most sought after from all flags globally. And so we will continue that good work in looking after that species, but at the tuna species, the highly migratory fish stock, but we will rein in through the Micronesian Challenge as a means for effective 100% management of our oceans in its entirety. And so with that, I apologize if we went over time. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Glenn and Trina, for that information, and I wish to remind the members our rule remains. Please, as we hear the presentations, note your questions, concerns, interventions, and then we will address them. Proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Before we proceed to the next presentation, we are being asked to make a brief announcement. May the following vehicles please be removed from where they are parked at the fire station or emergency services building. A white SRX4, license plate 240895. A brown CX3, license plate 260323. A light brown vehicle, license plate 240112. And a white vehicle, license plate number 232181. May we kindly ask our participants and guests to please refrain from parking in that area to avoid further interruptions. Thank you for your cooperation. We now yield the floor to the Regional Invasive Species Council to deliver their presentation.
Good morning. My name is Pwuhng. I'll be presenting on behalf of your Regional Invasive Species Council. I'll talk briefly about our mission and objectives and some of the regional findings that has been accomplished, the challenges we continue to face, and the recommendations moving regional work forward. Next So the mission really captures what we're trying to achieve. Our focus is on safeguarding the natural, cultural, and economic resources of the Micronesia Islands by preventing the introductions and spread of invasive alien species that threaten our way of life. I think the important part of this mission is that invasive species is not only an environmental issue. They can affect our food systems, our forests, the biodiversity, our economy, and ultimately the way people live and depend on their islands. So the work of risk is really about protecting those resources before invasive species become established, while improving our ability to respond when they do arrive. And finally, driving eradication initiatives where eradication is still feasible. The objectives are closely connected. We need strong biosecurity to prevent introduction, good policies to support enforcement, and resources to sustain the work, and coordinated actions where eradication opportunities exist. Next. So the main regional finding is that invasive species continue to be a major cross-cutting threat across the Pacific. They are affecting biodiversity, but the impacts go beyond biodiversity. They can threaten food systems, local health, and economic stability. We're also seeing increasing risk from different pathways and pressures, including transportation and climate change. The threats we're watching include coconut rhinoceros beetle, forest diseases, aggressive weeds, and some marine invasive species. The positive side is that we're making progress in containment and early interdiction. But the concern that we need sustained institutional financing to maintain progress and address the remaining capacity gaps. So the issue isn't necessarily that we don't know what needs to be done, but the challenge is having the sustained capacity and resources to keep doing it. Next. This slide highlights some of the investments made to strengthen biosecurity capacity. Biosecurity facilities at port of entry have been refurbished, equipped, and 4 new scanners were installed with support from Chopsticks and the government of Australia. But infrastructure is only one part of strengthening biosecurity. We also need trained personnel who can operate the equipment and carry out inspections and response activities. Through the FSM modular training, 25 personnel from border control, environmental protection, and agricultural extensions were certified in partnership with the College of Micronesia. We also expanded pesticide-related capacity with 11 personnel from Pwuhng and Yap certified through the US EPA pesticide division, and another 10 personnel from Chuk certified in commercial pesticide application through the Pacific Island Health Officers Association. So we're seeing investment not only in infrastructure, but in building the people and skills needed to support biosecurity. Next. In Palau State, ranchers were trained in fruit fly trap monitoring. This is particularly important because it helped establish local ownership of surveillance rather than relying completely on outside support. Palau also trained the INSPIRE project biosecurity cohort in early detection and rapid response, and inter-island biosecurity frameworks. Those approaches are important because the earlier an invasive species is detected, the more options we have to respond before it spreads. These approaches are, so the emphasis here is on building long-term local capacity and preparedness, rather than only responding after invasive species have become established. Next. The common rhinoceros beetle is a good example of what coordinated action can accomplish. In Rota, CRP has been successfully contained with support from certified detector dogs and island-wide biosecurity training. In the Marshall Islands, monitoring and containment efforts are continuing. More broadly, strong monitoring and surveillance efforts throughout the region for CRP and on other priority pests of concern. This continued monitoring is important for detecting new introductions early, tracking existing threats, and preventing further spread between islands. I think the key point here is that containment is not only a one-time effort. Even when we're successful in managing a pest, continued regional surveillance is needed to protect those gains and allow us to respond quickly if a threat is detected. Next. So there has been also been important progress in strengthening the policy framework supporting invasive species management. For the FSM executive order regarding coconut rhinoceros beetle was amended and endorsed in November 2024. At the state level, strategic action plans have been finalized and endorsed for the Marshall Islands, Pohnpei, Yap, and Pwuhng. Complementing the CRB executive order, the FSM state staffs have incorporated emergency response plan for priority pest concern, including CRP. Pohnpei has also taken an important legislative step with the passage of its invasive species bill by the 11th state legislature. And in Pwuhng, an invasive species management plan has been drafted, including a priority pest list. with finalization anticipated by December 2026. These policy developments are important because they help provide the legal and strategic foundation for the work happening on the ground. Next. Can you go back? One more slide. Good. So we're seeing tangible results through eradication initiatives. In Pohnpei, there are active monthly operations across 11 key sites. And Octopus Tree and Honolulu Rose has been completely eradicated from the targeted sites. With mature minor birds were successfully eradicated, helping reduce ecological pressure on native bird populations. These examples show that eradication is possible when there is sustained effort, targeted action, and coordination. These examples, but again, eradication doesn't necessarily mean the work stops. Continued monitoring is important to make sure those species don't become re-established. Let's go ahead. Next. So we came up with few recommendations. The first recommendation is to secure structural and sustainable funding for a full-time risk coordinator. This would provide someone who can keep communication moving across the region, follow up on commitments, and track progress on policy milestones. The second recommendation is for the MIF Secretariat to develop and host dedicated risk pages within the MIF website. That would provide a central platform for communicating invasive species alert, research, and regional actions. The next set of recommendations focus on strengthening regional engagement with the U.S. and other partners. The first is to transmit a unified letter, a MIF letter, to the U.S. administration calling for coordinated implementation of the biosecurity plan across all bases in the region. The second is to encourage the U.S. Department of War to fund independent strategic environmental assessment to support local decision-making through any military buildup within the region. And finally, we would like to strengthen the operationalization of the Pacific Biosecurity Collaborative with support from USDA Plant Protection and Quarantine, or PP2. There is already a linkage between Hawaii and Micronesian governments, but much of the interaction is currently virtual. And the time difference can make a regular communication challenging. So the recommendation is really to strengthen that existing collaboration and make the regional network more active and consistent. The overall message here is that biosecurity needs to be coordinated across jurisdictions and with our external partners, particularly where activities or pathways could create risk for island communities. So yeah, in closing, I'll close with the message on the screen. In basic species, thank you.
Thank you, Chair, for your presentation on behalf of the Regional Invasive Species Council. Next, we invite the Pacific Islands Regional Recycling Initiative Council to deliver their presentation.
Thank you, MC. Excellencies, Honorables, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Francisco Celestine, and I will be representing the Pacific Island Regional Recycling Initiatives Council in presenting our updates since 2027 and I. Next, please. Next. We'll start out with Pwuhng. For Pwuhng, installation of 2 balers completed. Trial run before commencement of the recycling operation. The EPA and partners, KMAS, responded, prioritized containment, removal and disposal of oil, and construction of oil storage facility is ongoing. Next. For Pwuhng, disposal of cooking oil biodiesel production, and the Pwuhng waste tire processing facility, and lastly, the composting in every village initiative. Next. For Pohnpei, strengthening the partnership between Pohnpei EPA and the Kadkadaur Relief to advance plastic recycling initiatives, complete 3 retentions, and facilitated the sale of 5 containers of aluminum cans to Indonesia and Busan, Korea, and complete survey and mapping of ELP around the area of Pohnpei. For Koshai, completed 2 40-foot containers of aluminum cans, which shipped to South Korea on December 2025, and on July 2026, completed 1 20-foot container shipment of PET bottle to Taiwan in August 2025, and lastly, Koshai became the member of the Monataka in partnership with the SPREP and Kiowa with assistance of Chairperson. For Palau, improving revenue generation by implementing a giving fee at the national landfill to support financial sustainability. Expanding the CEDAR program by identifying problematic waste streams to capture high-risk materials through congressional support, and the co-mix project in Coral State, which convert mixed solid waste into usable outputs such as oil, charcoal, and recoverable metal. For YAP launches its inaugural trial export of shredded PE bottle to Taiwan in partnership and funded by Chairperson and SPREP. They also shipped approximately 2,000 batteries of island to recycle facilities facility for disposal, and in collaboration with SPREP to initiate the collection of used oil. For the Republic of the Marshall Islands, under the Chairperson Phase 3 in May 2025, a 20-foot container carrying approximately 5 tons of PET bottle plastics was shipped to Taiwan, marking the beginning of a continued partnership. And a collaborative work continues with the Chairperson team, enabling expansion of the Monataka partnership with SPREP and Kiowa Shipping. They also procure cardboard baler under the SPREP Pathways Plus project, converting 20% cardboard from the landfill. And they continue to export used lead acid batteries and the compact or the compost green waste materials is ongoing, which stifled second largest waste stream going to the landfill. Moving forward with the objectives and the way forwards for our peer committee. Starting out with CHIP. CHIP objective is to secure funding for ice field equipment and storage facility. Way forwards, to complete the conceptual design of a new dump site, and to identify funding and budget for the solid waste recovery sites on 2 remote islands. For Pwuhng objectives, conduct pilot project with the use of the tire derived aggregate. Second objective is to implement the island-wide trash collection to include additional 20,000 households. Way forward is to continue to implement the zero waste master plan initiative, which focuses on glass and tires and C&D. For Pohnpei objectives, to rehabilitate the rehabilitation of the Kadkadaur landfill and the removal of end-of-life vehicles on the island of Pohnpei. Way forwards, secure funding for the Kadkadaur landfill rehabilitation and secure funding for proper use ice storage facility. For Kashai objectives, improve storage space for recyclables and ELP, improve volume for exportation of used oil and scrap metal. Way forward is to strengthen collaboration between jurisdictions on proper disposal of used oil and scrap metals, and to strengthen networking on recyclable commodities. For Palau objectives, to modernize Palau National Landfill heavy equipment to ensure operational reliability, and to explore solutions to address recycling of hard plastics. Way forward, container deposit legislation to include other recyclables. For YAP objective, establish a coordinated faulty waste management program for e-waste, including proper collection, storage, transportation, and disposal of bad waste. Way forward is to develop a sustainable use cooking oil collection program for proper disposal and export. Next. For the Republic of the Marshall Islands, objective, expand recycling program, most especially to include other waste streams. Way forwards are to strengthen collaborative work with regional partners on recycling initiatives and to promote capacity building. Next. For the committee's request to the leaders, we remain to have these 4 requests ever since the last MAFs, and we continue to ask to have a coordinator for the Pacific Island Regional Initiative Council to assist with all the island countries. Second, we support legislation for container deposit, focusing on bottle bill to implement and/or expand, and the Kaiten's protocol awareness training on lithium-ion batteries, and lastly, infrastructure or facilities supporting recycling activities and ELP. Salamat and thank you.
Thank you, Executive Officer, for your presentation. We now invite the Regional Energy Committee to deliver their presentation.
My respects to the traditional leaders of Pohnpei, one and all. My respects to Vice President Pahrek, governors, representatives from other jurisdictions, Lieutenant Governor,
Movic, National Government Cabinet members, State Cabinet members, ladies and gentlemen. We are blessed with a lot of natural resources. If you will walk out to the parking lot and look up at the mountains, you will see a very big forest on the mountains that can be converted to energy through biomass process. Pohnpei is also known for one of the wettest area in the region, and we have a lot of rainfall. We have the mountains that will give us the elevation for a dam and a hydro plant. So we have the potentials for a larger output hydropower generation. What we have now is only a run-of-the-river type. If you will go around Pohnpei, you will see a lot of commercial waste. Toward the airport, we have tons of solid waste that can be converted to waste heat to energy. And I am sure all of you, when you landed at the airport, on your left, you see a reef. Pohnpei is surrounded by a reef and a deep ocean in between the island proper and the reef. That shows us that we have the potential to have floating solar energy. Because of all of these potentials, we are like the rest of the Micronesian islands. Unfortunately, we are stuck with diesel fuel for the last 50, 60 years. So I am Nixon Hansen. I will be speaking on behalf of the energy company. Like I stated, I will speak from the perspective of a utility that carries the daily responsibilities of keeping the lights on. For Micronesia, energy security is not only a regional policy discussion, it is a frontline operational reality. It is about fuel arriving on time, generators being available, grids remaining stable, tariffs staying affordable, and people receiving reliable power across the island that are small, dispersed, and highly exposed to external shocks. The pressure is immediate. Fuel prices remain high and unpredictable. Shipping routes are long and costly. Storage is limited. Our generation assets are under pressure, and every disruption affects households, hospitals, schools, businesses, churches, you name it. This is why fuel security remains a lifeline issue for Micronesia. So the energy company decided to address again the issue of fuel. It will be boring to most of you who have heard of the presentation of fuel over and over. Energy security is not central to economic security, climate resilience, and regional development. For Micronesia, this means protecting today's fuel lifeline while accelerating a practical transition to proven and affordable renewable technologies. I want to repeat that again. Proven and affordable renewable technologies. Because most of the nations, when fuel prices goes up, they tend to jump to renewable energy. But we need to look at technologies that has been proven and that they are affordable. We must know what will be the cost of the renewable energy before we invest in these capital-intensive projects. Let me just give you an example. We have a 2 megawatt PV plant and 2 megawatt test in Pwuhng on the other side of the island. 2 megawatt. It costs 8 million for 1 megawatt. We're just building a new power plant at the Pohnpei power plant, diesel generation. The cost per megawatt is 1.6 million per megawatt. So I am emphasizing that so that we all will be mindful as we select the technology we want to supplement with our fuel. Fuel security is not only about whether fuel arrives, it's also about whether our economies, utilities, and households can afford it, and whether essential services can continue when supply chains are stressed. I must recognize FSMTC for their strategy in controlling the fuel costs during the fuel hike. I must recognize and thank FSMTC for their strategy in the deliveries of fuel from abroad. Regardless of what's happening out there, our delivery of fuel from Singapore, Geelong, Australia, I don't know where they're coming from, but they were not interrupted. So they need to take the credit for that successful effort. Vice President, thank you for that as well, because FSMTC is the national corporation. International fuel prices may be global, but landed fuel costs are local. In our islands, distance, small volume, storage capacity, transshipment, and freight arrangement determine the cost, affordability. All except Pwuhng is considered small volume jurisdictions. I am pretty sure Pwuhng alone is bigger than the entire Micronesia. FSM, Marshall, Kiribati, Nauru. So their volume is much higher than everybody's volume. And that is important. The North Pacific has a practical opportunity to move from fragmented tenders to coordinated procurement. This is not just cost savings, it is a resilience nation. Our challenges is no longer ambition. The challenges is delivery, tangible projects, ready system, skilled people, credible population, and coordinated financing. We have some recommendations for the leaders. The political ask is clear. Endorse the mechanism that allow us to move from vulnerability to reliance and from commitments to delivery. Some more recommendations for the Island Forum leaders. Island tariffs are directly tied to volume of fuel procurement, and we must be transparent in the price build-up. Regarding oil procurement, the combined volume benefits us all, most of all the end users. For those of you who are familiar with the FSMTC 2.0, recently FSMTC 2.0 endorsed at Pahrek M6 in PNG under three dominant priorities. One, strengthening grid readiness and system integration capability to enable the absorption of renewable capacity at scale. Two, improving project preparation and tangible investment readiness. And three, building technical capacity to deliver and sustain the just and equitable transition. Some more on the recommendation. Energy security is our shared responsibility. Together, we can secure a brighter and more resilient future. The pressure is immediate. Fuel prices remain high and unpredictable. Shipping routes are long and costly. Storage is limited. Our generation assets are under pressure, and every disruption affects households, businesses, schools, transport, fisheries, and essential public services. This is why fuel security remains a lifeline issue for Micronesia. At the same time, we know that diesel dependence cannot be our long-term security strategy. Again, renewable energy, storage, energy efficiency, demand management must become central to our future. But our ambition alone will not deliver reliability. We need grid-ready systems, tangible projects, skilled people, sound regulations, credible data, and financing that matches the realities of each jurisdiction. For Micronesia, the practical pathway is twofold. First, we must strengthen fuel resilience through better coordination, improved stockholding, share shipping solutions, and revitalize Micronesia Park petroleum procurement initiative. Second, we must accelerate the transition by investing in grid stability, renewable integration, utility capacity, regulation readiness, and, as I stated earlier, the FSMTC 2.0 as a regional delivery framework. So the map here is showing the transport route for the fuel, assuming our fuel are coming from Singapore, and our most important hub is Pwuhng. And during our last meeting in Pwuhng, the Energy Committee discussed intensively on price build-up. Price build-up from FOB Singapore, shipping, insurance, when it landed on Pwuhng, transshipment cost, what's the transshipment cost in Pwuhng constitute of? And when these tankers which are storage, what's the storage cost or fuel suppliers are adding on to? We need to know. We need to know because they are very important. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO Anson. I believe we reached the point where we should take a few minutes break. We're a little bit behind, so I really ask that we cut our break by half, 7.5 minutes. So refreshments are served for the leaders. Your refreshments are upstairs when we have lunch. And for the rest, some.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, CEO, and to all of our presenters, honorable leaders, distinguished delegates, and guests. We will now have our morning tea break for 7.5 minutes.
I may advise 15 minutes. 15 minutes.
Apologies. We will have our 15-minute tea break. We will reconvene at 10:50 a.m. Principal's afternoon tea will be served at the Governor's Cabinet Room. For our guests, refreshments will be served in the main courtyard outside. May I kindly ask all of our presenters to return to the reserved front row when we resume to ensure your presence during the leaders' dialogue and to answer any questions directed to you. Thank you.
Oh yeah, I was supposed to. Sorry, because I got that one and I started working.
more left. Kay king na iba. Chay ko tala chay lang.
So you guys didn't go to either way. No. There's others. So we were like, come on, let's go to the club.
Something we're supposed to when she went to the secretary Kadkadaur. After the that's why we go. I'm tired of like again I do yesterday. Tomorrow the I didn't feel it. And then it was like I feel down with when I was in the morning. Like I didn't like feel like I woke up like 4. 4 and then I so when it's determined to take care of time. After lunch I'm better. 20 to feet at the more 30. Can you see?
No, only the speaker will go.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
All of us cannot do it. We can report, but with the DJ one, it's already in the pipe.
Okay.
And they're just like, just for courtesy sake, just to approve 15 minutes. So if they really stick to the 15 minutes,
I'll do this in a second.
yeah, that's the time one for free. The one for tonight. One customer will be happy with the like $4. Time out.
civic center. Next time. Is there a better way out? Yes. This is 2 days ago. 3 days ago. Just to touch base. We did not hear back from you. All that's the United States.
Punya cebel lale, jai kubi itu bahan video, ayah nana cash full one.
Don't make it easy for you. Pleasure. Thank you very much. No, it's okay. No problem.
I didn't realize that.
It's okay. Hey, here, it rains a lot. I think it's wet.
Hi, good morning.
distinguished guests with a presentation by the Regional Ocean Resource Committee. Good morning, honorable leaders, distinguished guests, and fellow attendees. My name is Chelsea Munya. I am the director for the Guam Department of Agriculture and the co-chair for the Ocean Resources Committee. I would like to acknowledge my co-chair from Pohnpei, Mr. York Hansen, Administrator of Office of Fisheries and Aquaculture for Pohnpei State Government. Today I will be introducing our two presenters that we have scheduled for you today. The first is Rhea Moss Christian, the Executive Director of the Western and Central Pacific Fisheries Commission. The Ocean Resources Committee invited this presentation because we recognize that Micronesian jurisdictions have a profound and direct stake in the health and sustainability of the Western and Central Pacific tuna stocks. These are critical to our food security, economic development, and the livelihoods of our communities. As we look toward the future of fisheries governance in our region, the work of the WCPFC and the frameworks that govern equitable access and meaningful participation in small island fisheries are of great significance. Ms. Moss Christian will discuss the current state of tuna stock health and management, fisheries development opportunities and gains realized by small island developing states and territories, and the challenges that continue to limit equitable benefit. She will also discuss Article 30 of the WCPFC Convention, the special requirement for small island developing states, its implementation, and what more can be done to ensure that the special needs of Micronesian members and participating territories are substantively addressed within the Commission process. We will also hear from Mr. Eugene Joseph, Executive Director of Conservation Society of Pohnpei, a voice deeply grounded in the state's coastal and oceanic resource environment. The committee recognizes that in all our islands, coastal space and suitable governance of nearshore and inshore marine areas are increasingly under pressure, with direct consequences for food security, community well-being, and traditional resource rights. Mr. Joseph will share coastal space challenges facing Pohnpei State, Pohnpei's approach to community-based fisheries management, and how that may inform broader Micronesian strategies, and how regional Micronesian initiatives connect to and advance all of our priorities. In our report submitted for your review, we identified 3 recommendations. We asked the nomination for 2 participants per jurisdiction to take part in the Pacific Fisheries Leadership Program Intensive Unit in Q1 of 2027, to nominate participants to take part in the Integrated Oceans Management Marine Spatial Planning Sub-Regional Meeting to be held in October this year, and to adopt a resolution proffered through this committee in support of Guam and CNMI's efforts to develop commercial fisheries through the WCPFC framework. So with that, I would like to ask Ms. Moss Christian if she's ready to start her presentation.
Hi, good morning. Thank you, Chelsea. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, a very warm good morning to all of you there, and I want to thank the Micronesian Island Forum for the invitation to present to you online this morning. I'm sorry that I couldn't be there in person to welcome you to headquarters for WCPFC. I am currently in Apia, Samoa, where we have just finished our scientific committee meeting yesterday. For those who don't know me, my name is Rhea Moss Christian, and I am the Executive Director of WCPFC. I am a daughter of the Marshall Islands and an adopted daughter of Pohnpei, so a very warm good morning to those delegations. I've been asked to answer 3 questions today for you. Are the stocks healthy? Are the small island developing states benefiting? And what comes next? So I'll start with the big picture. These are provisional 2025 figures, which don't become final until the end of the year. The WCPFC's data calendar has a 1-year lag, So the scientific committee that just convened and finished yesterday has been reviewing data for 2024. But what we have for the moment is that the Pacific tuna fishery constitutes 49% of the global tuna catch. This is still the world's largest tuna fishery in the western and central Pacific Ocean. 86% of that catch is coming from coastal state waters of the Pacific Island countries and territories in the western and central Pacific. And 5 of those nations are represented in this room at the Micronesian Island Forum. To give you an overview first of how the tuna RFMO, what the tuna RFMO family looks like. There are 5 global tuna regional fisheries management organizations in the world. The WCPFC, of course, right there in the middle in purple. The Indian Ocean Tuna Commission, the Inter-American Tropical Tuna Commission, which shares the Pacific management in the Eastern Pacific Ocean, and we have an overlap area that we share management over. And then the Atlantic Tuna Commission, and the Commission for the Conservation of Southern Bluefin Tuna, which is an organization, a single species organization that spans the Southern Pacific and Indian Ocean. Now, a look at the WCPFC convention area, and you can see that the convention area covers exclusive economic zones of Pacific Island developing states and also territories. This makes WCPFC quite unique from other tuna RFMOs that are predominantly covering high seas areas. And so Article 30, which Chelsea mentioned, and I'll cover briefly at the end, is the article that ensures that WCPFC's work is taking account of the special needs of these Pacific Island developing states that are situated in the management area of this commission. And importantly, acknowledging that these are the resource custodians and the resource owners. So to the first question, are the stocks healthy? And the short answer is yes. Skipjack is the backbone of the WCPO fishery, or the Western and Central Pacific Ocean fishery. Skipjack tuna is predominantly caught by purse-seine vessels, and this is mostly what is processed and canned. The big eye stock is facing a little bit of pressure, and that was the subject of very long discussions at the scientific committee that just finished yesterday. So there's some pressure, but there's still some work to do on the stock assessment. Pacific bluefin in the Northern Pacific is under a strict rebuilding plan and is rebuilding successfully and has met its second rebuilding target ahead of schedule. Yellowfin tuna is stable. There's better science available, but there are still some uncertainties around fisheries for yellowfin around Indonesia, Philippines, and Vietnam. South Pacific albacore is a healthy stock, but is facing some economic challenges. And the North Pacific albacore fishery is quite healthy, and this is predominantly a fishery between the US and Canada and the North Pacific. So overall, the 6 tuna stocks managed by the WCPFC are in biologically good shape. Meetings like the one we just had of the scientific committee ensure that members are using the best available scientific information to make sound management decisions. Now let's talk about value. What is this fishery worth? This is 2025 figures again. The fishery was worth $5.4 billion. This is the value of catch coming out of the Western and Central Pacific Ocean. It is down 5% from 2024 numbers, but it is still one of the higher years on record. 57% of all of that value comes from the purse-seine fishery, so the skipjack tuna fishery. 51% from skipjack. So this is predominantly managed by the parties to the Nauru Agreement, which includes 5 of the Micronesian island states as members. And then Big Eye is a fast-growing industry at making up 21% of that $5.4 billion value. The question 2 around are Pacific Island countries and territories benefiting? This is a challenging question to answer, and I think it really comes down to each individual member to determine the level of benefits. But what I'm showing you here is data that comes from the Pacific Island Forum Fisheries Agency around the catch value in Micronesian zones. And so this is not, I want to be clear that this is not access revenue, this is not national revenue numbers, this is the value of catch that is based on prices in the major markets in Japan and Korea. And I included the 5 Micronesian island nations here, and you can see from 2013 to 2023, 2023 is the latest data that's available by the FFA. You can see the fluctuations in value across each of these zones. So as an example, the value of tuna fisheries in the Kiribati zone in 2023 was just under 1.2 billion. On the other hand, the value for FSM in 2023 was around just under 200 million. And so I think to answer the question around, are SIDS or Pacific Island countries benefiting, depends on how initiatives are set up and partnerships are set up to extract as much of that tuna value as possible, so that those revenues and the benefits are remaining in island countries. But there are 2 risks to realizing the full value of the tuna fisheries, and one is climate change. What we know now from the research and the data that is being developed by the Pacific community and the scientists at SPC is that climate change is moving the tuna stocks eastward. We are seeing changes in the ecosystem brought on by changes in climate to food sources for some of these tunas, particularly skipjack, and projections show strong migratory patterns away from the western and central Pacific Ocean toward the eastern Pacific. And what that means is that the less fish that are being caught in zones and instead on the high seas is a direct decline in fishing revenues. And so the bottom line for that picture is that outside fleets that are currently capturing a lot of the value of the tuna fishery will capture even more of that, particularly those who are well capitalized and fishing across high seas in multiple ocean areas. So on the third question, what's next and how does the Commission fulfill its promise to SIDS? A review of Article 30 and the Commission's implementation of the special requirements for SIDS is currently underway. It has just begun, and in fact, a communication went out today from the independent review panel on the methodology. The importance of this work is to ensure that the majority of members of WCPFC who are SIDS members are benefiting from and realizing the benefits and the value of their fisheries. It's more than just the economic value, it's about participation and engagement in the work of the Commission. And having just finished an 8-day scientific committee meeting, I can say that what we really need in the next 10 years in the Pacific region is scientific capacity. And this is critically important to ensure that Pacific Islanders are not only engaging in, but actively determining scientific modeling, understanding stock assessment, and contributing to the management advice that stems from science. The scientific foundation of the Commission is fundamental to the success of its management and conservation outcomes. So the bottom line from today's presentation is that the stocks are healthy, the benefits are real, and there is a lot of potential that is yet to be realized, but we have to keep track of what's happening in the climate and in the ocean climate as a result of climate change. And we have to continue to ensure that the Commission is conducting its work in an equitable manner and recognizing the role of small island developing states toward ensuring the health of these stocks. The stocks are healthy in the Western Central Pacific because of the work of small island developing states. Allowing for your time and your attention, I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah, say a bit more if you can, Ria. This is Stevenson Joseph. And since you're not with us in person, I will allow questions from the principals, if there is any. Okay, so then there seems to be no questions, so we can move on. Thank you very much for that presentation.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Executive Director Mons Christians. I would now like to invite Mr. Eugene Joseph, or Executive Director Joseph.
Thank you, Chair. Kasililian Maiko, Your Excellencies, Honorable Governors, distinguished leaders, delegates, honorable guests. It is with immense honor that I stand here to present to you the key insights on the state of our ocean resources, particularly focusing on the nearshore resources and the path forward for sustainable management. Across Micronesia, our jurisdictions share common challenges in the stewardship of ocean resources, from pressures of coastal development to impacts of climate change and overfishing. These issues transcend boundaries and call for collective solutions. In this context, Pohnpei's experience offers a valuable illustration. Next slide. Over the recent decades, we have observed a steady decline of fish sizes, a clear indicator of overfishing and mounting ecosystem stress. In response, governments have enacted laws and regulations to protect valuable, vulnerable species and critical spawning areas. This experience teaches us that effective management is not a solitary endeavor, but requires a collaborative approach involving all stakeholders. Next. Even with the establishment of protected areas, certain species such as groupers have experienced early population declines. These fluctuations complex interactions among environmental factors, fishing pressures, and management efforts, underscoring the challenges we face in resource management and conservation. Next. As regulations focused on groupers intensified, fishers shifted their efforts toward other species. This shift has created a feedback loop of unsustainable pressure, demonstrating that management actions influence fisher behaviors and necessitate ongoing adaptive responses. Next. Economic data reveals troubling decline in fisher earnings. The base value for a fishing trip has decreased by $16, I know not in millions, and when adjusted for inflation, this decline deepens to $39 per trip. When factoring in transportation costs, the reduction stands at $32 per trip. So, to put this into perspective, an average earning per trip have fallen from $73 in 2015 to $41 in 2023. This trend, however, highlights the financial hardship faced by our fishing communities amid rising living costs, emphasizing the urgent need for economic support alongside ecological measures. Next. To address this, we must develop sustainable fisheries initiative that balances ecological health with economic viability. Second, strengthen community-based resource management, empowering local decision-making and co-management. Thirdly, support vulnerable groups, including fishers, processors, traders, to promote equity and food security. Fourthly, enhance laws, enforcement, and local management plans to ensure compliance and effectiveness. Last but not the least, employ adaptive management grounded in science, allowing flexibility and responsiveness to changing conditions. Next. Ocean resource management is dynamic and yet an iterative process. Its success depends on continuous dialogue between managers and resource users, fostering trust and cooperation. We must embrace adaptive, inclusive, and nature-based solutions to secure sustainability of our ocean resources for our future generations. In closing, I urge all leaders to champion collaborative approaches that integrate ecological stewardship with livelihoods of our communities. Together, we can ensure resilient and prosperous ocean resources that benefits the people of Micronesia. Salamat and thank you.
Thank you to all of our morning presenters. At this time, I ask all presenters to please remain seated in the reserved front row for the next session. We now open the floor for the leaders' dialogue and discussion on this morning's presentations. I now yield the floor to our forum chair.
Thank you, Kiana. There you have it. Presentation's done. We've heard, listened. Now it's your time to say something. If you have any pressing issues, questions, please do so. Vice President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to thank all the presenters for your excellent and well-prepared presentations. I'd like to start off by registering FSM's interest in a couple of these presentations. The first one is on energy, and I want to thank the gentleman who did the energy, Mr. Nixon Anson, for the presentation. FSM appreciates the leadership of the Republic of the Marshall Islands in advancing discussions of the Micronesia Bulk Petroleum Procurement Initiative and recognize the potential benefits of greater regional cooperation in fuel procurement, including improved purchasing leverage, stronger market intelligence, and enhanced supply resilience. FSM also brings relevant practical experience to this discussion. In 2008, FSM implemented an optimum cluster quote-unquote approach consistent with the regional direction then contemplated under the Pacific Forum Plan, consolidating petroleum supply arrangements that had previously involved 3 separate supply companies across the 4 states into an aggregated national procurement model. In 2015, it increased that value for money model by incorporating supply arrangement for the Republic of Nauru, increasing scale and efficiency, enabling the 2 countries unparalleled supply security with 2 separate suppliers using 2 distinct supply chain models. This model proved resilient through the geopolitical and economic events over the last decade, and its more recent times, through the Iran conflict. That experience demonstrated that frigate can create important efficiencies and strengthen procurement leverage, but also that the benefits depend on careful alignment of demand, shipping, storage, infrastructure, financing, contractual arrangements, and the different operating requirements of participating jurisdictions. FSM supports advancing the proposal to a structured facility and market assessment phase. In parallel, FSM recommends that each prospective participating country undertake a national readiness assessment to establish its existing procurement arrangement, costs, infrastructure, contractual obligations, risks, and national fuel security requirements before any commitment is made to a regional procurement mechanism. And in the FSM, this assessment, as we are comprised of 4 states, should include consultation with each state, utilities, FSM Petroleum Corporation, and the Pahrek Group, and the relevant regulatory and infrastructure agencies. FSM considers the appropriate test of any regional arrangement should be value for money based on total risk adjusted delivered costs rather than procurement volume or headline fuel price law. FSM also considers that regional procurement should not automatically result in the pooling of sovereign, credit, or financial risk. Any future arrangement should preserve national decision-making over fuel security, contracting, inventory management, and emergency procurement. All procurement should be considered as one component of regional fuel security, alongside adequate strategic stock, resilient infrastructure, supplier diversification, reliable shipping, emergency response capacity, capability, and national energy planning. FSM therefore recommends that the next phase should work through 2 coordinated mainstreams. One is the regional facility and market assessment to assess procurement options, supplier interest, logistic, governance, commercial economics, resilient benefits, and the equitable allocation of costs and risks. 2, it should take into account national readiness assessment, using a common framework across the participating countries to establish national baselines, requirements, risks, and conditions for participation. Where practicable, the regional work should include market sounding or integrative commercial testing, so that potential economy of scale can be tested against actual market conditions rather than assumed. So, Mr. Chairman, FSM therefore supports moving the initiative from concept to structural feasibility, market testing, and national readiness assessment, with the form and level of future FSM participation to be determined from the evidence generated by that process. Last week, the President and I had a meeting with our 4 governors from 4 states, and we discussed the fuel supply and related issues. And I welcome the governors if they have any other things to add to what I just mentioned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I believe you've spoken States, and as usual, where there are slight deviation of foresight, we can resolve that too. Thank you for that attention. Any other issues from the other jurisdictions?
Mr. Chair, I could just bring the forum's bring the forum's attention to the proposed resolution under the Ocean Resources Committee calling for collective advocacy related to the Sina Line Guam's aspirations to develop sustainable commercial fisheries. I believe it should be in everyone's packet. Specifically, advocacy for flexible and equitable approaches with WCPFT that recognize unique circumstances and the needs of the U.S. Pacific territories, and we'd always be open to discuss with your folks and our counterparts as we continue throughout the week. Thank you.
Thank you. Fully noted. Thank you for that comment. Bob, Haru, Palau. I'll give the floor to Governor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The question has to do with the Micronesian challenge. It is the report RMI and allow have access to the endowment and challenge endowment fund. Okay, it's the same as that. What's the fund if we gain access to it will return some of the, I would say, what we gave up in order to establish the and network. So what is it that giving the NSA to access this endowment fund?
I believe that question is for, is it Micronesian challenge? Is it clear, or should you repeat the question?
Thank you for the question on the endowment fund. I believe all jurisdictions have endowment fund, and MCT is managing it alongside TNC, and so we'll turn it over to MCT is not in the house, but TNC is.
Well, an MCT board member, then I am also an MCT board member, and TNC does not manage the I do think MCT is best placed to answer, but also perhaps Secretary Kadkadaur or Assistant Secretary Tillman. I know you have had conversations with MCT about how to access that. Would you like to answer the question?
Thank you very much, Governor. If I understand your question correctly, was that question around why we have not accessed the funding? I believe this was shared in our CEC meeting last week, that there were certain requirements that we need to meet as a country in order for us to access the endowment fund. And that is why we have that resolution in place in our last week meeting to ensure, because our context is a bit different in the sense that we have 4 state governments within the nation, and therefore, unlike RMI and Palau, where they have to endorse one legislation, for example, like for PAN, we have to do that 4 times. And so in our meeting last week, we agreed that instead of having all those requirements endorsed 4 times by the state, that we would allow those states who are ready to access the endowment or who have met all criteria to access the endowment fund. I hope that clarifies your question.
Yeah, I believe as a country there are certain requirements to be met. Right. understand it correctly. According to the reports that were taken, Yap stage is completed.
Yeah, and for Pwuhng, if you're particularly interested in Pwuhng, there were only 2 criteria that needed to be met to access the endowment fund.
Whenever we work closely with you, our national team will coordinate this process.
Thank you. Hermione. Yes? Oh, Pwuhng.
Mr. Chair, I'd also like to ask for the forum's support for the resolution on supporting the commercial fisheries development aspirations for Guam and the CNMI. At its core, this is about ensuring that Guam and the CNMI have a fair opportunity to sustainably develop our fisheries and realize greater economic benefit from the ocean resources around us. We're asking our Micronesian partners to stand with us and support fair and equitable opportunities for our jurisdictions within the regional fisheries framework. Thank you.
Thank you, and duly noted. Well, if there are no more, I suppose we are done with the morning session. MC, take over, please.
Thank you, leaders, for a productive discussion. We will now pause for lunch and schedule bilateral. Today's leaders' lunch will be served in the Governor's Cabinet Room and is generally sponsored by the Pacific community. Attendance is reserved for principals plus 2 accompanying members. Thank you, Dr. Andrew Jones, Deputy Director General, Science and Capability, and your entire team for your sponsorship and gracing this forum with your presence. Deputy Director General, Director Kostika of the Micronesia Regional Office, and Program Manager Narissa Lewis of the Pacific Fisheries Leadership, you are invited to join our principals and the Governor's Cabinet Room. For all remaining delegates and guests, lunch is served in the courtyard. We will reconvene at 12:40, where Mr. Patterson Shedd will be taking over as Master of Ceremonies. Thank you.
Let's make our way up to lunchroom. 12:40, huh? 12:40?
They spray the perfume, but you put the